Well, thank you guys for joining today. I think this is going to be an interesting session for you. Some of this you could actually potentially follow along. I would maybe recommend, as Erica sends out the recordings, that's one of the most common questions we get, by the way, is the session recorded? Yeah, we always record them, and they'll be available by the end of the week. But you may want to look at that recording later, because I think I'm going to show you a few interesting things in here today that you may or may not realize you can do with the mobile app. We'll also look at some specific things that you can do around designing some more advanced capabilities with the mobile app, like scanning barcodes, for example. And so I think you're going to really enjoy the session, even if you, I saw a fairly large percentage of you actually have not downloaded the mobile app yet. I think you'll see a good reason to go ahead and do that. So, and also, by the way, I should mention, but depending on how much time we're going to have available, I'll actually show you how to do some extra configuration in the Power BI desktop to get some more benefits from it. So we'll see how much time we have. I got a lot to show you, so let's go ahead and get into it. Real quickly, if you're not familiar with who I am, my name's Devin Knight. I am the training director here at Pragmatic Works. So any kind of training, typically paid training, I help a lot with the free training that you're attending today as well. I am a Microsoft Data Platform MVP. I've authored several books around SQL Server in the past. I run a local user group in Jacksonville. I'm from Jacksonville, Florida. You'll actually see some references to that later once we get in the mobile app. But I run a local user group here out of Jacksonville, Florida. And I also blog at a website called devinknightsql.com, where, by the way, I blog at least once a week on some Power BI topics. So if you're really into Power BI, I recommend taking a look at my blog. You can also follow me on Twitter or email me later if you would like. All right, so our plan for today is really threefold. We're going to start with a little bit of an introduction to the Power BI mobile app and talk about some of the benefits of the app. We'll talk through some scenarios of when you would use it, when maybe your data consumers would use the Power BI mobile app. Then we'll walk you through how you can actually design dashboards and reports specifically for mobile, because there's some configuration. It's pretty simple to do, but there's some configuration that you want to take into account whenever you're designing for mobile. So we'll walk you through that. And then we'll actually kind of give you a tour of the mobile Power BI app, and we'll walk you through some of the things that you might already be aware of, some of the things you may not be aware of. I noticed there's a typo on my slide now. That's embarrassing. Let me fix that real quick. Boom, just like that, all fixed. But that's kind of our plan for today. We're going to walk through these kind of key elements of learning to use mobile for Power BI purposes. All right, so the question then, I guess, is why do you use the mobile app? What's the use case for it? And it's really all about where do you want to find your data? Where do you want to use your data? Of course, you want to use your data and connect to your data when you're at work, but there's also other scenarios where you want to connect to and look at your data. So for example, if you have end users that are visiting customers, or sales reps that are visiting customers, or maybe it's you that's visiting a customer, and you want to be able to get to your data, then the mobile app is perfect for that. It gives you the ability to be able to see your data wherever you are, and whenever you want, exactly. So I'll go ahead and show my webcam here as well. But it gives you the ability to really see that information and see it whenever you want. So I don't know, I was looking at some of the survey or the poll results here a few moments ago. It looked like 43% of you view your mobile device 20 times or more a day. And I'm probably in that category as well. I have a dull moment. I'm waiting for an appointment, for example, a doctor's appointment, a dentist appointment, whatever it may be. I'm going to look at my app to kill some time. I have kids that play baseball and soccer and things like that. And so I'm always looking at my phone whenever there's a break in the action to be able to see either what's going on with my data, or maybe I'm reading the news, whatever it may be. We're looking at our mobile apps very frequently. I know one of the Power BI executives, he always checks the Power BI mobile app right when he wakes up, right when he goes to bed, and he checks it throughout the day as well. So there's a lot of cases when you want to get to your data, and the mobile app gives you that capability to get to it at any point in time. All right, so the other thing is that we should consider some of the common scenarios when it comes to being able to use your mobile app, and some of the more business-oriented scenarios, not just I'm off hours and I want to be able to check things, more around business scenarios on when I can use the mobile app from a business perspective. And some of those are things like when I want to check inventory. So let's say, for example, I work at a grocer. And this is an example I'm going to show you a bit later. I work for a grocer. Maybe it's one in the Southeast that's really popular is Publix, maybe Kroger where you're at, maybe Walmart grocer, wherever it may be. I want to be able to actually go through my store, and as I'm going through my store, look at a particular product, and maybe I have this understanding about the product that I've inferred over time, but really if I were to dig deeper into that particular product, I would find out more insights. So for example, a common example that Microsoft actually tells a story around is they had a brochure that they were considering lowering the amount of apple juice they would buy, or applesauce or apple juice or something like that. And what they actually did is as they were going through the store, they used their Power BI app, used the barcode scanner, which I'm going to show you a bit later, scan the barcode on the apple juice and determine that, well, actually, you almost need to purchase more apple juice up front because you're selling it. It's out of control here. So maybe you didn't realize it, but actually there's more insight here that you can find out just by using the mobile app and scanning the barcode of a product. So that's one of the really cool things you can do with the Power BI mobile app. Another thing you can do, of course, I'm just giving you some scenarios here. You can monitor web traffic. So if you maybe want to build a report and actually see it on an app that you can kind of walk around and say, oh my gosh, I took a lunch break here, but it looks like our web traffic is out of control, and we may actually have some issues, some overloading issues if I don't get back immediately. So again, another business scenario on when you might use something like a mobile app. Also, let's say you work in the hospital and you want to be able to monitor patient vital signs. Obviously, there's a lot of concerns with privacy and HIPAA compliance when it comes to those things, but you can actually look at the Microsoft Trust Center, which is HIPAA compliant, and you'll be able to, you can realize that you can actually use the mobile app for being able to monitor those vital signs. You could even, that same barcode example we talked about earlier, you could use a barcode on a patient wristband, for example, to be able to scan it and filter just to that patient. So there's some really cool things you can do that maybe you don't think about. It might seem like more of a retail thing, but you can actually use even within inside of hospitals. And maybe just a sales team. Maybe you work with a sales team. In that sales team, you want to be able to monitor deals that they have that are closing, deals that they have that are open and are about to close, and you want to be able to monitor that information while you're talking to them. You can open up the mobile app and they clearly have a conversation. Well, it looks like you got 6 deals that are about 60% ready to close. What is it going to take to push those over the line? So you can have that information at your hand, and that's really the key part of this here. So how does that done? Well, that's done again through the Power BI mobile app. It's convenience at your fingertips. You have, I asked the question earlier about what type of device you have, Apple, Android, or Windows Phone. And you guys, it looked like primarily were Android and Apple with a few Windows Phone folks. But really, you have the capability of using with any of these devices the mobile capabilities. So whether it's on a tablet or on your phone or whatever it may be, you can get to your data anytime, anywhere, it doesn't matter. And it gives you the ability to really take advantage of that time you have. We talked about that downtime you have while you're waiting in places. Well, hopefully not while you're driving. Don't do it while you're driving, not even a stoplight. Don't check Power BI while you're driving. But while you have that downtime while you're waiting for things, you can certainly use the mobile app on any of these devices to be able to interact with your data. And it just makes you more aware of what's happening with your business. So it gives you that more fingertip approach. You guys are already telling me you're checking your phones more than 20 times a day for most of you. So it gives you another element that you're already using. You're already doing this. It gives you a place where you can go check and see how your business is doing. So let's talk now a little bit and look at some of the things that we can do with inside of Power BI to really design for mobile, okay? Now there's really 2 places that you need to consider when you're designing for mobile. One is from the Power BI desktop when it comes to actually dealing with setting up reports, and then the other is from the Power BI service where you can set up for your dashboards. So hopefully you guys already kind of realize the difference between reports and dashboards when it comes to Power BI. Just a quick review on that. Dashboards take elements of reports and pin them to maybe the most important elements of your reports to the dashboard. So you design the reports first, you pin the most important elements of those reports to your dashboards, and then you have those at a more high-level view. So what we're going to show you in this first demonstration is I want to show you how you can set up both reports and dashboards for mobile phones, mobile phone capabilities. And there's actually some specific things you can set up with inside of the Power BI service and the Power BI desktop to configure that for mobile viewing, okay? You should also know a couple of things here that you can actually set up your phone, or I shouldn't say set up, it's automatically going to do this where your phone can go horizontal or vertical. So for example, if you're looking at a dashboard, your dashboard is going to show you some key elements in a vertical view, but if you turn it horizontal, it's actually going to show you a full view, and we'll get an idea of how that works right now, actually. So let's take a step back here from doing slides, and I'm going to open up the web browser here. And one of the things I have open already, I'm going to take a step back here and really guide you through how I got to where I'm at in case you wanted to follow along later. Again, I'm not going to go so slow that you can do it right now. But one of the things I want to point out to you here is I'm almost assuming that I'm starting from scratch here. Okay, so I have a new app workspace. If you're not really familiar with what app workspaces are, you can check out some of the courses we have around administration and our Power BI course. But basically, it's me starting from scratch. I have a new container here, and what I'd like to do is I want to get some kind of a solution out here, a Power BI solution. The good news is there's actually a bunch of samples already available out here. So let's assume that I'm not going to develop something from scratch right now. You'll actually see whenever you create a new workspace that it's going to bring you to this area where you can start to connect to some data. In our example, we're going to connect to some samples. So I have a sample section down here in the bottom right. You may not even realize this is here, but there's actually some nice samples in here. So I'm going to select samples. And it's going to bring me to a point where I can select from the different samples that are available. And the sample that we're going to use for this one is going to be this retail analysis sample. And sometimes I've had some issues where it didn't pull in correctly, so we'll see if it works this time. If not, we can pull in a different one. But I'm going to select this retail analysis sample and tell it that I want to connect. And then what it's going to do is it's going to add this sample into our workspace here called Mobile Report Webinar. It looks like it's working here, hopefully. Still kind of taking some time importing the data. Okay, so it kind of bombed on me. That's okay. That's just a sample. I have another one where I've already imported it and it worked correctly. Let me move over to that one. Here we go. So this is actually that same exact sample. For some reason it works, sometimes it doesn't. I clicked on it 5 times, and the 5th time when I was working on this previously, it did pull in a sample. So if you ever look at those samples, the majority of them were, it's just this retail one has some issues for some reason. Anyway, so I'm looking at a dashboard that I've now imported from the sample. I've pre-imported this one here because that live demonstration of me doing it bombed a little bit there. But what I want to show you the capabilities of being able to do here is setting up a dashboard to be viewed on a phone. And if you aren't already aware of it, there's a section up in the top right of your dashboard view right here that allows you to actually toggle back and forth between viewing this in more of a web browser format versus a phone or a handheld device. And so what we can do is I can switch this up in the top right-hand corner of my dashboard that's already been created. I can flip this from web view to phone view. And what you'll notice what happens is I already have one that's set up. I have a setup here that's actually showing me a view of what it would look like on my phone. But if I wanted to, I can actually, there's a section up here in the top right that says unpin all tiles. I can uncheck that and tell it to unpin everything. And basically it gives me a blank design surface here where I can start to pin in these different visuals that you see on the right-hand side. And so what I might want to do is I might want to come in and say, well, I want to see the total stores, pin that into here, and you can resize this to however large or small you want it. I could even make it take up half a screen here if I wanted to, like this, and maybe I want to pin in also in here the total sales and bring that right next to it. Let me resize that one. And so you kind of get the idea. You can take inside of the phone view and you can start to pin on different visuals that you want to see. So if I want to pin the area chart, I can do that. If I want to pin the map and maybe the scatter chart, you can see how many of these different visuals you can pin on here, and you can resize them based on your needs. So if I wanted to, I could make this map a little larger so you can actually see it a little bit better. Or maybe I wanted to make the scatter plot a little bit larger. You can do that as well. So you have the ability to adjust these all from within the design surface of a phone. Okay, and just like that, it saves it automatically. There's no save button you need to hit. It immediately now pushes this off into my mobile device. How do I know that? Well, let me show it to you. I actually have a nice little app here. This is a view of my mobile phone right now that I have right in front of me. And from my mobile phone, I can actually kind of walk you through what we just did and what we just set up. Now, a couple things about the mobile device. I'm going to be showing this on an Apple. As you can see on my screen here, this is an Apple, an iPhone. But you can certainly do a lot of these same things from Android's Windows Phone. I will point out that the interaction is going to be slightly different, okay? By the way, I know I'm going to get this question as well. The app that I'm using, you can see the name of the app in the top left-hand corner. It's called Lonely Screen AirPlay. It's for it's free, but it allows you to be able to screencast iPhones. All right, so to show you really a couple things about the Apple iPhone app for Power BI, I want to walk you through it. Now, there's a couple things. If you have an iPhone already, you might be familiar with a few of these things, and depending on the iPhone version, you have some of these features. Like this first one I'm going to show you, for example, may or may not be available to you. One of the things that you can do with the Power BI app is you can actually do a hard press on this. So if you have, I think it's Windows, I keep saying Windows, it's iPhone 7 or 6S, I think allows you to do this, where you can actually do a hard press on the app. And you'll notice whenever I do that, oh, that tries to move it. Let's try that one more time. If I do a kind of a pressure press on top of it, you'll see that it actually brings me some of where I can go to my notifications. I can do a quick search. I can go to some of my favorited dashboards in here. So I can actually select something like the retail analysis sample, and then it'll take me right over to the dashboard that we just created a few moments ago. So this is the dashboard that we just created together. You can see here the two tiles that we had up top. You can see the area chart there. You can see even the maps and the scatter chart. We really see everything that we've already created, but we created just a few moments ago is now appearing here. So it's kind of a nice interaction that you see here. And by the way, even if we didn't use the favorite mode that we just did a moment ago, where we went to the quick access to those reports, you can just launch the Power BI app just like that. And you can see your favorite dashboards that you have up front here. You can also go to the dashboards if it's not favorited. If for some reason you don't have a favorited dashboard, you can actually go to the top left little icon there, and you can go navigate through the workspaces that you have. You can see workspaces are right here. And I can select that workspaces area and see all the different workspaces I have created. All of these are for training purposes, so not really anywhere in you seeing these. And then I can go find something like my free training workspace, and I can see the 3 dashboards that I have, and as well as the reports that I have within inside of that workspace. Again, a workspace, if you're not familiar with that, a workspace is basically a container for all the objects that you've created. So maybe dashboards, reports, data sets, all those are included within inside of your workspace. Now you don't see data sets here, you just see dashboards and reports, and that's intentional. You're not really doing anything with data sets from a mobile device. But I can go to any of my reports, or I can go to any of my dashboards from here, and I can select the retail analysis sample, for example, and that takes us right back to where we did on that quick access pressure press that we had a few moments ago. All right, so that's kind of a quick view of what you can do. This is showing you the view that you have whenever you want to set up a dashboard for mobile viewing. Before I move on, though, I do want to show you this. If you actually were to select one of the tiles that you have on your dashboard, so if I were to select the map one, for example, or let's say the area chart. If I were to select the area chart here, it does bring it up as a bigger view. This is still within inside the dashboard itself. There's a couple icons that you'll see on the bottom down here that you have some ability to actually enhance what you can do in here. And we'll talk about those here in a few moments. But for the time being, just note that you can kind of interact with this report. You can go to any of the values. You'll notice whenever I select a value here, that up top, on the very top here, it's displaying what those values are. So you can see that up on the very top. You can also actually drill into the deeper report. So right now we're just looking at one of the dashboard tiles, but if we wanted to drill into the deeper report, you can select what looks like the little bar chart here on the bottom. And if you select that, that's going to drill into the actual report. And you'll notice here that it gives me immediately gives me a horizontal view of my data, and I can interact with the report here by selecting values if I wanted to, by selecting slicers. All that, those capabilities that you would normally have from a report are available to you within inside of the Power BI mobile app. You can also go back and forth between different reports. If I wanted to go to the next report, I can just kind of slide my hand or slide my finger across the side, and it'll go over to the very next report that I have here. Okay, you can also do that up in the top as well, but we'll get to some of those things. On the bottom here, you can see if I click this little icon, that'll allow me to toggle back and forth between the different reports that I have. So I can see an overview report, I can see a new store report, I can kind of go down to the district sales report if I want, and it allows me to go back and forth between the different reports that I have included in this dashboard. All right, so let's take a step back here for a moment. Now we're back on the tile. This is one of the tiles that are within inside of the dashboard that we designed a few moments ago, at least the foam view. And one of the things that you can do here as well is you can actually do some what's called annotations. And I'm going to show you, this is actually one of our demos a bit later, but I'm going to go ahead and show you since we're hanging out here anyways. Within inside of any of the tile views that you have, you can actually see on the bottom, there's this little pencil icon. That's indicating that you can do annotations. By the way, you can hit the little ellipses on the far right, and that'll allow you to also see you can go to a report, or you can do annotations from there as well. So it's just another place to do the same thing. But if I click on the annotate, it basically turns this into a drawing canvas where I can do things like draw on a particular area. So let me actually take a step back. Let's say I'm really interested in why this year's sales were so much lower than last year's sales in April. Okay, so I can see this year's sales in April were significantly lower than the previous year. So I can select that area, which is April, And then I can click again on the annotate button that we saw on the bottom. And then I can actually do things like, now that I have that view of the data, it's basically taking a screenshot of that view of the report or visual. And I can do things like highlight this. I can draw on it if I wanted to. You have all kinds of different little, almost like emojis you can put on it, but it's just little faces you can put on it where you can do an arrow if you wanted. So I can insert an arrow right here. I can do a sad face if I wanted to, maybe a red sad face because I'm really not happy about it. You could also type in some text here if I wanted to. So I can put a new text box over here and say, what happened in April? Like that. Okay. And I can move that around so that it's not too intrusive there. And then once I'm happy with that, I can hit return, or I can I could have gone to the next line there by hitting return. And then when I'm happy with that, I can go ahead and hit share up in the top right. And then it's just opening up the standard share options that I have inside the iPhone. So I can email it to somebody, I can message somebody. Hopefully I'm not posting this sensitive company information on Facebook, but it'll certainly let me to do that. I can just save it as an image, that's what it's going to return it back. But if I put mail, it's now going to launch open an email. So this is my email here, which I can of course email to someone that I work with. You can see if I scroll down, this is actually showing what I just screen captured a few moments ago when I did the annotation. And I can also go to the top, which this is really interesting, is it actually has a link where whoever gets this email from me will get a link directly to the report that, or the visual that I was just looking at. And so if they click that open this year's sales, last year's sales in Power BI, it'll take them to the view that I had just a few moments ago. So it's a good way for them to be able to get to the same thing that I'm complaining about here. All right, so that's built-in capabilities in here. Very easy to do to make that happen. I'm gonna go ahead and delete that though. All right, so we showed you a few things there. Let's actually, there's one other thing I wanted to show you as far as setting up and designing for mobile. The first thing I showed you was in the Power BI service, and we showed you how you can actually create and design the layout that we're seeing here to have the dashboard in a more appropriate phone view. But you can also do phone views for reports as well. Now, if you want to do any kind of report design for phone, you do need to go to the Power BI desktop. So I'm going to actually flip away from my mobile view here for a moment, and I'm going to bring open the Power BI desktop and an example that I already have right here. Okay. And from this view, what you can see is this is a report, similar report to what we had on our mobile device a few moments ago. You can see I have several reports that have already been created, including this one here, that I think I'm going to take this one and actually make a mobile view out of it. Right now, what happens if I were to select an item in my dashboard, you saw it a few moments ago, it flips horizontally my report. It forces me to go horizontal on my report to view this information. But what you can do instead is if you go look inside the Power BI desktop under the view menu, so if you're gonna have to go up to the very top here, you'll see under the view menu, there's an option here where you can do a phone layout. So if I select phone layout here, it's gonna flip me and I can go back to desktop layout if I wanted to. But when I have it set to a phone layout, I have a very similar view that I had inside the Power BI service. Now remember, there's two different things that we did here. In the Power BI service, we set up the phone view for the dashboard. Inside the Power BI desktop now, we're setting up the phone view for our reports. So this is more of the detail interaction reports that we are maybe used to seeing. And so what I can do is I can actually add things to the report here just by dragging them and putting them on the design surface. Okay, I can bring any item that we want onto the report. Okay, and I can redesign the size of these if I wanted to. And I can place this on here as well. We'll get one more visual just to have a good view of this. So I've gotten several visuals in here. Again, what's going to happen with this now, let me add one more. What's going to happen with this now is whenever I go to view this inside my mobile app, rather than automatically turning my report horizontal, it's going to give me a nice view that we're seeing right here. So let me show you what this is like. I'm gonna save this, and let's go ahead and publish this. Let me go back to desktop view for a moment. I'm going to publish this to my Power BI service. And I'm going to publish it to a service, a workspace that I have out there that we created a few moments ago called Mobile Report Webinar. Hit select, and that's going to publish it off to our service. Now, what this is going to mean from a mobile perspective is now whenever I go back over to my mobile view that you guys had a few moments ago, and I'm waiting for this to finish publishing before I do that. But as soon as this finishes publishing, what we'll be able to do is we can see this report. There we go, it's done. And I can go back to my mobile view now. And what I can do is I can go navigate to that workspace. Because it's not a favorite, I won't find it underneath the favorites, but I do have this mobile report webinar workspace here. I can select the retail analysis dashboard, or I can go to the reports. Well, that's interesting. I'm saying I don't have any reports at all. Let's fix that for a moment here. Let's go back to the Power BI service and make sure that's fixed. So inside the Power BI service, what I can do is I can go to that workspace. Again, that workspace was called Mobile Reports. Let me just clean this out. Okay, that actually is showing that I have reports. So let's try that one more time. I might need to just refresh my Power BI app here for a moment. There we go. All right, so let me bring back up the Power BI app so you can see it with me. Here we go. So this is, you can see on the very top, this is my mobile reports workspace. I just needed to refresh the screen and it allowed me to see this report I deployed a few moments ago. And you'll even see that there's this little icon next to it. This little icon next to it indicates that it does have a phone view built into it. And so if I select that retail analysis sample, this is actually the phone view of the report. So this is not a dashboard, this is a report. When inside of this report, you can see it's giving me this vertical way of viewing the report. So it does remain interactive. I can click on things. It allows me to do filtering just like we would before. I can click on an item here and it filters other items. It's very interactive, but it just gives it a more appropriate phone view here, like you're seeing, okay? Now, that's as opposed to the other views that we saw a few moments ago. So if I were to select the option down here in the bottom where I can toggle back and forth between different reports, I can select that option and I can select a different page of my report, like the new store report, new stores report here. Now you'll notice here that it says that I have to view this one in landscape because I did not set it up as a mobile view. But that's fine, you can actually still view it in that way. If I were to go back for a moment and perhaps go to my dashboard, I can then select into any one of these and it would give me the ability to launch open into one of those that's more that horizontal view. But it's ideal if you know you're gonna be viewing these on a mobile device to go ahead and set them up in that vertical view that we'd set up inside the Power BI desktop a few moments ago. All right, cool. So let's go back to our slides here for a moment and let's talk about sharing. So when you want to share a report, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can certainly share reports from or dashboards from your Power BI service. You can also share dashboards directly from the Power BI app. Now sharing is a Power BI Pro feature, so you do need to have Power BI Pro to be able to create those sharing capabilities. But it's built into the app where you can actually share with others directly from the app. And you can see I have a screenshot here where I've kind of demonstrated how that can be done, but I'm going to show you live as well how you can share from the mobile app, okay? So let's flip back over to my Power BI app view here. And I'm going to go into a workspace that I have called Jack's Workshop because I have that one kind of ready to go for this example. Oh, it's actually under my workspaces. Let me take a step back here. And I'm going to go to Jack's Workshop. All right, so I've come to another dashboard that I've created. It's got a few visuals that are already built into it. Some of them are still populating in there. I can actually see this one actually is connected to Stream Analytics, so I see that data coming in here live. So it's kind of interesting here. I'm seeing live bid data coming through. And what I'd like to do, though, is I want to be able to actually share this dashboard with others. And you'll see there's a share option. If you look on the bottom of the screen here, let me zoom in on that for a moment so you can see it. On the bottom of the screen, you'll see there's an option right here where I can actually share this with others. You can also mark it as a favorite, and then this is called Q&A, which you have available on the mobile device as well. I'm going to show you that here in a few moments. Some of you are probably already familiar with Q&A. Q&A, like I said, is available within the mobile app as well. So if I want to share this dashboard with others, I would simply select that little share icon that I just pointed to you a few moments ago right here. And when I select that share icon, it says I can invite other colleagues. So I can see that I've already shared it once with Devin, or Devin's really the owner of it. But I can invite a colleague here, and then I can tell it who do I want to invite. So I can come up to the top here, and I can type in somebody that I work with. And it might have better luck. So it's kind of trying to go through my phone list here. So I might have better luck if I actually type their email address, and it might recognize it a little bit faster. There we go. And so I can tell it that's who I want to share it with. I can give them some kind of message. So I can say, this is for webinar or something like that. And hit share. And then it's going to show up and share that now with Mitch Pearson here, one of my colleagues. And so I've now shared this report with him. He's going to get an email notification that's been shared with him, and he'll be able to view it from his mobile device as well as the Power BI service. So he'll have the ability to now view it from either area because it's been shared with him once he accepts that share. Okay. So very easy to do, very simple to show, but you can share a dashboard in that way. You find the dashboard that you want. You go to the little share icon that I showed you just a moment ago right here. And once you select that, that gives you the ability to share it with any other individual. Now, again, they do have to have a Power BI Pro account to be able to do that, okay? All right, let's move on to what's next. So the next thing is actually a fun one. And what this one's gonna show us is the ability that we have to leverage geocoding that we have inside of our reports. Let me go on to the next slide here. So there's a geo-filtering capability that's built into the Power BI mobile app that allows you to just click this one little button that you see in the bottom right that I'm showing and highlighting on the screenshot here, and it'll actually take you immediately to relevant data in the area that you're at. So again, put yourself in the scenario that you're a traveling salesperson, you're on site visiting hopefully multiple customers, and you want to be able to view on your mobile device which customers are closest to where you're at this second, this very second, which ones are closest to me. And so you pull up your Power BI mobile app, you go to your dashboard, and you view a certain visual within inside of your dashboard that has a map of all your customers, and you click this little button in the bottom right, and it allows you to go directly to the customers that are closest to you and view the customers that are closest to you. Now, you'll see on the slide here that I say you need to set up data categories. The setting up of data categories is more beneficial from the perspective of the map itself. And once you have that set up, it's going to make it easier for you to be able to pin where you're at closest to your customers. Data categories are just a field inside of the Power BI desktop where you can tell what type of field you're looking at. So quick example of what I mean by that, this is the Power BI desktop. If I were to go find a field here like city, so look where I'm selecting right now on the far right, I have city selected. With city selected, you'll see there's this little globe icon next to it. That means that the data category has been set up. And really setting up those data categories is helpful no matter what you're doing when it comes to geographical data and a few other things like the barcode we'll talk about a little bit later. You'll need to set up the data category as well. But how do you set up a data category? Well, you select the field, you go up to the modeling ribbon on the top right up here. And then from within inside of the modeling ribbon, you can go to where it says data category right here, and you can tell it what kind of field you have. So is it an address, is it a city, a continent, country, so on and so forth. You even can do images in here, web URLs, and then barcodes we'll talk about a little bit later. But I can select that, and then that allows it to be a little bit more accurate. And this, again, this has less to do with the geo filtering, more to do with just being able to pin down your map results more accurately. So once I've done that, once I've set that up and I've used that city field inside of a map, and I publish it off to the Power BI service, it's now available within inside of my Power BI mobile app. And so let's show you how you would interact with and use that. So from my Power BI mobile app, I'm going to take a step back here, go to my free training workspace that I have here, and we're going to look at our retail analysis sample. This is the sample we looked at earlier, and we actually created this phone view that we're looking at. And I can see here that there is a map that you're seeing on my screen right now, and that map I can select. If I click on that map, and you'll notice this icon in the bottom right. That little bottom right icon allows it to filter down to the results around me. Now you'll notice most of these results are I see some in New York, Pennsylvania, Virginia, North and South Carolina. I don't live in any of those locations, so what we're gonna see when I click this, I live in Jacksonville, Florida. We're gonna see it zoom to Jacksonville, Florida, but no results. And by the way, you can flip this vertical and horizontally here, so you can see when I accidentally did that, what it did to the screen here for me. But if I click that little icon on my screen in the bottom right, it's going to take me to, and actually we live in Fleming Island, which is a suburb of Jacksonville, Florida. It shows me what results would be around me. And in this case, I just don't have any customers around me in Fleming Island. But as I zoom out, like you can do with your phone, you can kind of scroll up and look particularly where those customers are. So it looks like there's one outside of Savannah, Georgia here. It looks like I can go a little bit further up and I can see some outside of Charleston, South Carolina. And so I can really use my phone to be able to see what's around me, but just by clicking that little button that you see in the bottom right, and takes you to a geo-filtered report. So it filters me down to the area that we're at. Now, by the way, if you click it again, it'll undo that geo filter. It'll unzoom back to where you're at. So again, if I click that, it takes me to any customers around me. If I click it again, it takes me right back to where I was. So it's a nice capability you have with inside the phone app to be able to filter down to results that are close by you. Okay, very simple to show, very quick to show. Let's move on to the next thing. All right, so the next thing I want to show you guys is around alerts. Alerts are a really cool way to give you the ability to actually have pop-up notifications occur whenever you have a threshold of your data met. Now you can do alerts on the Power BI service. You can also do alerts on your mobile application. And it's pretty simple to do, but there are some limitations to it. I would really love them to do some more advanced things with the alerts where they can make it more data-driven than it is, make it more dynamic. It is data-driven right now. It's just kind of static as far as the data-driven capabilities, meaning you can tell it, I want to be alerted whenever I reach 23 million in revenue, but you can't tell it that you want it to be 10% of this, for example. It has to be very static as far as the number that you're trying to reach. The data-driven alerts do only work on particular visuals, only a couple different visuals that it works on. It works on a card. So a card is just literally a number shown. And it can also work on gauges. So if you have a gauge on your report, you can also do data-driven alerts there as well. And it is possible, by the way, for you to have multiple data-driven alerts on a particular visual. So you'll actually see where you can have a list of different alerts that you've configured on your report. All right, so let's go back over to the phone view here. I'm going to take a step back from what we were looking at before. And if you remember what I said just a moment ago, you can use data-driven alerts on either gauges or on cards. And I happen to have two cards, those two visuals that are on the very top here. These are both considered cards. And so if I select one of those, let's say, for example, I'm looking at this year's sales, it's at 2 million. I can select this year's sales, and then you'll notice on the bottom here that you have this nice little feature here, this little bell icon. And what that little bell icon does down here is it's where you would actually configure your alerts. Now, if you're using another application like Android, it also has this. It's just in a slightly different location. So some of this stuff is going to be in slightly different locations based on the navigation of your operating system on your phone. In this case, it's pretty simple. I can see on the bottom there, I can see the little alerts icon. I can click on the alerts icon here, and it will take me to adding a new alert. And when I select add a new alert, I can then customize and create an alert, give it a name if I wanted to. Okay, so give it some kind of name. I'm going to go with the default name for now. And I can say that I want to be alerted whenever I go above, let's say above 2.1 million. And let's make that a little clear. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, that looks like that's right. I can have it actually, what's the frequency of the alerts that I want? I can tell how frequently do I want it, and do I also want it to email me? So I can actually integrate it, so not only does it pop up in a notification like you'd have on your phone, but you can also have it set up as an email notification if you wanted to as well. So you have that capability. You can come in here. I would say, at least right now, it's a little limiting. You can set up the condition to be either above or below that certain value, but it's a little limiting because what I'd really like to be able to do here is say whenever I beat 10% of last year's sales. Something like that would be interesting to me. Now, you can certainly hack that. You could actually create a field inside of your solution that's 10% above last year's sales, and you can plug that in and set up your notifications on that. But I'd still like that notification to be a little bit more dynamic. It's a little limiting right now, I'd say, as far as what you can do, but it's also your same experience you're going to see from the Power BI service is what you're seeing here. Now, when I save that, it's going to show up here now where I've created that notification, and you'll see you can certainly create more notifications if you wanted to. I can go back from the bottom and I can add another notification here if I wanted to that says maybe if I go below a certain value this time, I can set up another notification. So let me go ahead and save that. I'm just to show you that you can have multiples here. You can also turn off notifications. So if I hit the little switch right here, I can turn off a notification. So it's still there, it's just turned off, or I can outright delete it by hitting the little trash can icon there. Okay. So nice little capabilities that you have with inside of the mobile phone to set up alerts. They're data-driven. They're a little bit limiting in that they're not dynamically data-driven, but they're still nice in there and that you can drive it based on data that you have on your data set. All right, let's head back to our slides for a moment. All right, the next feature is one of my favorites, which is Q&A. It's one of my favorites that we have inside of the service. It's also one of my favorite features that you have with inside of the mobile app as well. It's a really cool feature. And they basically, what they call it inside the mobile app is they call it a virtual assistant, or a virtual analyst, I should say. And basically, it's like having a text conversation with a friend. You can text back and forth with a virtual assistant, and it gives you the ability to really interact with your data just by asking questions. So you can type literal questions or text in there, and it's going to return back data and information for you. It also has something that's very similar to Quick Insights. If you've used Quick Insights in the Power BI service, it's called Feature Insights here, and it basically tries to find correlations in your data that maybe you're not thinking about. Okay, so let's show you how this one works. This one's pretty simple to use, but it's pretty impressive in how it works. So I'm going to go back over to my view of my mobile app here. Take a step back here. And if you want to interact with Q&A, what you're looking for is on the bottom, way down here. Zoom in on that for you. Way down here, you'll see this little, what looks like a text conversation back and forth. This is where you'll do Q&A inside of your mobile app. And so I'm going to go ahead and launch that. This is from a dashboard view. We're looking at a dashboard right now, and then I can select and click on oh, I need to actually do it from my app, not the screen. All right, so I'll select and click on the Q&A conversation here. Okay, so it does say, by the way, that this is in preview, but it does tell you a few things here that are interesting. You can see as soon as you launch it, it's trying to help you out. You can see there's this option here called Feature Insights. And if I select Feature Insights, it's actually going to return back some correlations in my data that maybe I'm not thinking about. So it says there's a correlation between gross margin this year and gross margin last year. Well, go figure. That makes sense. It also says there's a correlation between gross margin this year percentage and gross margin last year percentage. No, not shocking there either. But what's cool is I can actually click on that quick insight. So if I click on Insight 2 here, it'll actually show me and build out a nice report here. And it'll show me in a visualization those correlations that have occurred between those two values that it found. So it's kind of nice. It has the ability here to be able to show me that information and do it pretty easily here. The other thing is you can actually use your voice if you wanted to. You can see there's a little microphone icon there. Let's see if this works. I'm kind of tempting fate here by trying this, but let me actually try and speak this. This year's sales. Oh, we got this year. So we got pretty close. Let me try this year's sales. Search that. And it should bring back a nice little visual where it's showing me this year's sales. So it found there was $22 million in this year's sales. It also found some correlations between different stores. So if I wanted to, I can click on that insights again, that where it says there's a correlation between stores. I can click on that and it'll give me some other variation of this as well if I wanted to. But rather than doing that this time, I'm going to say I want to see it by district. Hit go. And now it's going to show me this year's sales by district. And so there we go. I can see by district. There's each of my districts. And if I wanted to, I could actually click on that. It'll take me to a view of just that visual that we just created with inside of the Q&A capabilities. I can take a step back, go back over to where I was. Let's say we want to look at this again. Let's say I want this by postal code. Okay, so I can type by postal code. And based on the type of data that it's looking at, I believe it's actually going to pull this up in a map for us, and it does. And so I can see a map of this year's sales by postal code. Again, you can click on that if you wanted to get a better view of that report here. And you can dive deeper into this if you wanted to. You can look at particular items if you wanted to. So it's a nice little way to be able to interact. But let's show you one more thing that I think is kind of interesting. So I want to, this time I want to see it by state. Okay, and by default, it should bring it back as a map again. Okay, so I'm going to see this year's sales by states. This year's sales by territory is what it interpreted it as. But what I want to do is rather than seeing it as a map, because it's kind of small, it's difficult to view here, maybe I actually want to change the type of visual that we're looking at. And you can do that all through this text conversation that you're having. So rather than looking at this as a map, I could do something like this. If I type as, and notice as soon as I type as, it actually brings up all the different visuals here. You can see I can scroll right and left to see the different types of visuals that I can show it as. So I can say I want to show it as a gauge, I want to show it as a pie chart, I want to show it as a maybe a bar chart in this case, so I can select as bar chart, and you can see it pre-populates that for me. I can hit the go button here, and it's going to show me this as a bar chart now instead of as the map that we had a moment ago. So Q&A makes it really easy for you to interact with a report that you have. It's really nice capabilities built in. Of course, you can actually do this with inside the Power BI service as well, but it's nice it has the voice capabilities I attempted to show you there a moment ago built in here as well. So nice functionality in here. And again, you're going to do this from the dashboard view, not necessarily the report view. We're actually looking at a dashboard here. And then whenever you're looking at a dashboard, you're going to see on the very bottom where you can actually do that Q&A capabilities. Okay. All right. The last feature that I want to show you with the last few minutes, I'm going to try and save some time for questions, but this is probably my lengthier example I have here. But the last thing I want to show you guys has to do with scanning. And this is actually one of my favorite features that I've discovered as I was playing around with the Power BI service. It's a really cool capability that you have to be able to basically go and walk through a store. So here, let's talk through a scenario here a little bit. I gave the example earlier. Let's say you work for a grocer or you work for a retail company in some way, and you're walking through the store and you have these understandings about your products. You think that, let's say, for example, that Cliff Bars, I got a Cliff Bar here. You think that Cliff Bars are selling out of control. And this happens to be, if you can't see, I'm sharing my webcam here. This happens to be the Peanut Toffee Buzz one. It contains caffeine, apparently. And I think that these happen to be selling really well. And so I'm constantly thinking I need to reorder them. The cool thing about how Power BI works is I can actually integrate in with my UPC system. UPC system meaning the barcode on the back of this Cliff Bar that I have. I'm going to show it to you here through the Power BI app in a moment as well. And I can use this to be able to actually scan products as I'm walking around with my mobile device and see what the data really tells me. To see that the data really tells me that, well, I think I'm selling this really well, but in fact, it's my worst selling Cliff Bar of all the Cliff Bars I have. So it gives me the ability here to really be able to filter down and make it very interactive without necessarily having to type anything. It makes it very interactive to be able to filter down my reports. The other thing that we're going to look at here as far as scanner is the ability to scan a QR code to take you directly to a report. So two things I want to show you as far as the scanner. One having to do with barcodes, and then one with the ability to share reports easily with others by creating QR codes. All right, so we're going to start with the QR code example here first, then we'll show you the barcode example next. And if we have some extra time, I'll show you how I set up the barcode example so you have an idea of how you might set that up yourself. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to show you guys is the QR code capability. And again, the idea behind this is to make it easier for you to be able to share reports with others. So say, for example, that I wanted to easily make it so that my report that I have right here, let's say I go to this report. I want to make it incredibly easy for someone to be able to get to this report and make it even so easy that I can print up a piece of paper, they can use the Power BI app and scan that piece of paper and it launch open the report for them. The way that you can do that is you need to start in the Power BI service. So from the Power BI service, you find a report that you want to create a QR code for, and then you can go up to the top right here where you see more options. So in the very top right corner of my screen here, there's this option, it's a little ellipses here. That'll take you to some more options you have on this report. And one of those options is that you can actually generate a QR code. And if you select that and select generate QR code, it's going to generate a QR code for me here. And you can literally scan it right here if you wanted to, or you can download this as an image, and then you can do what I did. And those of you that have my webcam view, you can see I already printed up this image and I put it on a piece of paper. So that way, whenever I go to my Power BI mobile app, I'm going to just hit done on this. So if I go back over to my Power BI mobile app here, I can go back to where you see scanner. So you'll see in the bottom left here that I have a section here for scanner, and I can select that scanner option. And you can see, oh, it already did it very quickly. It was almost instantaneous there that it found it. So let me show you that one more time so you can see what I did. So you can kind of see it did it again immediately. So it's so quick with that QR scanner that as soon as I get it anywhere near it, it launches the report for me. So in this case, I've actually created this QR scanner and I'm already in the report that whenever I selected that scanner, it took me right to the report I needed to. So that's ideal, right? It's fast. It should be fast like that. And we've created this little code so you can simply scan it and it takes you right to the report you need. So you've kind of seen that. You can print up that icon that I showed you a few moments ago. And when you print that, you can put it on paper, you can put it digitally somewhere else if you wanted to, but it makes it very easy for you to be able to scan a QR code like we did there a moment ago. All right, so the last thing I want to do is I want to show you around how to scan products, okay? Now, I'm going to show you first the end result of what the final product is, I guess, and then I want to show you how I did it, assuming we have some time here. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to go to my free training workspace here, and I have a report here specifically called Barcode Example. It's the one on the top here, and if I select that, I can see I have a report here that's been designed, and it has a list of all these different products in here. I can scroll through and look at all the products, or because I've configured this report to include a barcode, I can instead go down to the bottom right here where you see the little ellipses. I can select that, and you can see there's a barcode scanner. And if I select that barcode scanner here, it will pop open the barcode scanner here for me. You can see I'm looking around my office here a little bit. And then if I wanted to, I can actually come in and find my Cliff Bar that we were looking at earlier. And if I get it just right, notice what happens there is it automatically filtered down to that particular product. And I can zoom into it, I can click on it if I wanted to, and I can filter down the other item that I have. I'm still looking at a report, so I can still interact with it, but because I use the barcode scanner, it'll filter down to the product that we're looking at. Let's try it again. I have another product here that will work as well. So I'm gonna do barcode scanner here again. This time I'm going to select, I have this little oatmeal box here, so you can see what I'm about to scan. It's brown, maple and brown sugar oatmeal box from a coworker I found, and I can get and line up that UPC code. And as soon as I do that, I can see that it automatically filters down to the Quaker Oats box that I have here. So it's able to really interact with that and be able to filter down to specifically the product that I have. All right, so we got 5 minutes left. I really do want to show you how I did this. One is you certainly have to have it in your data, right? It's got to be in your data. If you don't have the UPC data information in your data set, then you're going to have a hard time making that example work. But here's actually the Power BI desktop report that I designed around it. Very simple. I didn't want to go too crazy with it, but very simple. I didn't even have sales data in it. I'm just doing a count of all the products that I have. And so I imported a data set that had UPC data in it. Okay, so let me show you what the data set looked like, just so you have an idea if you want to set this up yourself. And by the way, there are some limitations, although it seems like it covers a very wide variety of all UPC code types here. Here's the types of UPC codes that Power BI supports. So if you're having a look and determine if the UPC codes that you were using actually work, this is the list, and here's the website that actually tells you that. This tells you which ones work and which ones don't work, okay? All right, and by the way, there's a question somebody asked is, does it only work against desktop files or also against tabular models? If the tabular model is, you know, that's a good question, Eric, because I would have to see is, does the tabular model have the data category to set up barcodes? And I can't recall if tabular models have that data category. If it does, if it doesn't, okay, well, Eric, you answered the question then. So the piece that I'm going to show you next is really key. If the Power BI or excuse me, if tabular models don't have it, which Eric says it doesn't, then you can't do it. But let me show you how it works. So I have a data set. In my data set, I have a list of UPC codes here. So I have actually a couple different options as far as UPC codes. And one of the key things to make sure you keep in mind is the UPC codes need to be brought in from your data source as text. You might realize this already, but if you try and bring it in as a number or as a numeric value, you likely have some leading zeros oftentimes will happen in your UPC codes. And if those leading zeros are in there and you have your value in there as a numeric, then it's going to truncate those leading zeros. So you need to bring in your UPC codes as text first. So keep that in mind. Whenever I imported this in, I had to actually tell Power BI not to convert it to a numeric value. So once I bring it in as text, I can then go over to the field that has my UPC code. So I'm using the UPC 12 in this example. I would select the field right here. And then I would go up to the modeling ribbon. So you'll go up to modeling up at the very top here. And then underneath the modeling section here, you'll see there's a data category. And so this is the part Eric was talking about, does not exist in tabular. There's a data category you can set up for barcodes. And I have it right here inside the Power BI desktop where I can tell it that this field that we're looking at right now is a barcode. If, by the way, you have this in here as anything other than text, it won't show up. This data category won't be an option for you because it is contextual based on the data type that you have. But once I have that proper data type, I can select it as a barcode, and then all the capabilities I showed you a few moments ago where I can actually scan it immediately light up with inside the mobile application. So with inside the mobile application, I can then scan any of the barcodes I have as long as they're supported in my data set, and it will get that same interaction that we saw a moment ago where it'll filter down my report to the appropriate value. So really cool capability built into the mobile Power BI mobile app that allows you to do that filtering. And you wouldn't really be limited to products necessarily. If you have UPC codes that have to do with patients or whatever the code may be, and you can scan it within the Power BI app, it will give you the capability to filter down just to those values you care about. All right, so I know we are out of time. I want to try and take a few questions here real quickly. So a couple questions that we see here. Will I show my screen? Yeah, obviously we shared my screen. One question that I know I answered earlier that will likely come up again is this recorded? It is recorded. Erica recorded this for us. She'll have this up on the site by the end of the week. Let's see, can the phone layout for a report be set as multiple pages for the desktop? I'm trying to make sure I understand that question. Can the phone layout be set up on multiple pages? Okay, I think I understand. So if you're going to do the phone layout on the Power BI desktop that I showed earlier, where we went to, let me show this again, where we went over to the modeling ribbon, the view ribbon, and we did phone layout. This is something you'll have to do on each report page. So if I think this is what you're asking, I would have to actually go to each one of my report pages and set them up on each one. There's not something that will allow you to do it for all of them automatically. I would actually need to come through and add them in individually for each of my report pages. I think that's what you're asking. If not, please clarify. Let's see, would sharing a report via annotations annul RLS? So this question has to do with row level security and sharing annotations. So yes, so the short answer is yes. If you're gonna share an annotated visual, keep in mind that those annotations are basically screenshots. So a screenshot does not respect row level security at all. So if you were to do the annotations that I showed you earlier, just a reminder of what that is, whenever I went to a report, or sorry, I should say a dashboard, whenever I went to a dashboard and went to a particular visual, this is the example where I showed the area chart earlier. If I select the annotate option on the bottom, it's going to respect my row level security, whatever row level capabilities I have at the time, but anything I do here is simply a screenshot. So this is a screenshot that I can then send to others, and it basically annuls, like you said, annuls any kind of row level security that I might have there. Let's do one more question because we're running out of time here. So Quentin has the question here, is it possible to set a notification that data itself was refreshed? That's a great feature request that I don't think is there right now, Quentin. So basically, Quentin, I think it's a great question. What he's hopefully is looking for is whenever my data gets refreshed in the service, I want to be automatically notified on the app. And by default right now, that does not happen. So that's a good question. Unfortunately, it does not work, does not have that capability. All right, well, we got a bunch of questions that came in here late. So when somebody asked the question around tabular, so when I state not in tabular, am I referring to analysis services tabular? Yes. Analysis services tabular, from what Eric is saying, I don't have it up on my screen right now, but what Eric is saying that the data category for barcodes does not exist in there. I believe him. There's some things that are certainly not in tabular as far as the data category capabilities that are in Power BI. So I trust him on that one. If he's checked, he's probably right. All right, we are already after here on time. I will take a look at some of these questions, guys. If you have questions that maybe you didn't get answered or maybe you haven't asked yet, go ahead and put them in the chat window. I do try and blog afterwards with answering a bunch of these questions. So please feel free to ask any questions in the question and answer area here, and I will try and make sure I can get to some of those via my blog. Again, my blog, in case you want to follow up with me later, if you want to look at any of the blogs that I do already, you can view by going to devonightsql.com. So if you go to devonightsql.com, that's where I'll blog. And again, Erica will be sending out, from our marketing team, will be sending out a video later for this. I would also let you know as well that if you're really interested in this type of training, Pragmatic Works also offers a course called Power BI for the Consumer, which is specifically designed for people that would be using the mobile app, people that are more using the service. They're not necessarily just building Power BI solutions, but they are interacting with them. And so if you have a need for a course like that, it's called our Power BI for the Consumer course, please let us know. We do that as a recorded on-demand training, but we also have it where we can teach it live for you. So it's about a 3-hour course whenever we teach it live, but it allows us to teach your end users, where you might have 300, 400, maybe thousands of end users that are actually interacting with your solutions. We can train them for you. And so if you're interested in that, please let us know. I think you'll have a survey question at the end related to that, and let us know if you are interested in being a part of that. But again, you have my contact information on the screen right now. I'm going to hand it back off to Erica to close us out.
Thanks, Devon, and thank you everyone for joining our free webinar today. As Devon had mentioned, I will be sending a link to the full recording of today's webinar. I also put it up on our website at pragmaticworks.com. It's usually up after lunchtime. Thanks again for your time, and we look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. We have another free training session that is focused on our Doc Express tool, and that will be with our founder and CEO, Brian Knight. So hope to see you guys tomorrow.
And by the way, Doc Express does have Power BI capabilities. So if you guys are interested in documenting some of your Power BI solution, it's a great place to go.
Yep. All right. Take care, everyone.